Welcome to the Thriving Tides podcast. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Julianne. If you're an entrepreneur or busy individual looking for self-care ideas, you're in the right place.
And we can't wait to share our experiences with you. Welcome back to the closet. I'm so excited that we're finally back in the closet.
It's been over a month.
Over a month that we've been in the closet.
I don't even know how that's real.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we've been doing, if you guys haven't seen, we've been doing so many interviews lately. And they're so much fun, but we definitely did miss the closet a little bit, I think.
Yes.
And we also got some other really exciting news, Julianne.
Well, we're sitting here sipping on the new Frosted Grape Twist Colliding Tides.
We got sponsored, baby! What?
Cheers!
Cheers!
So good.
So good. Their packaging is absolutely adorable. I love the purple. And even Julianne has matching nails today.
My manicure matches my Colliding Tides can.
I love it.
I'm pretty excited about it. And it wasn't even planned. I think I was just meant to drink these forever.
Yeah.
But honestly, this is my favorite Colliding Tides now.
Oh, 100%.
Doesn't even compare. I mean, I do love the seltzer.
Yeah, that's always going to have a soft spot.
But if you want a little flavor,
it's where to go.
This is where it's at. So.
But yeah, thank you so much, Colliding Tides, for sponsoring Thriving Tides. How perfect is that?
I feel like this was meant to be. We've been talking about it.
Right?
And sometimes we have to put it out into the universe. So
exactly.
We made it happen. Yay.
Oh, so
good.
When you texted me that we got a sponsor, this is us being really vulnerable and authentic to you guys. I actually had a little dance party. So I'm I feel like we've made it. We've grown and I'm just so proud and
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So yes, thank you again, Colliding Tides. I'm so excited that we get to sip on this throughout this episode.
And how cool is it to be drinking something that also is made here in PEI, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we like to support local.
Yeah.
In everything we do.
In everything.
Including our drinking.
Yeah. 100%.
Special shout out to Jill, who made this happen.
Thank you, Jill.
You're the best. So while we sip on these, what are we going to talk about today, Steph?
We're going to talk about content marketing. Super excited
Your
about this
jam.
one. I was going to say, if I could just do content marketing, I totally would.
And podcasting.
Well, podcasting is technically a form of content.
See, I have so much to learn.
Yeah. So, content marketing focuses on creating valuable, engaging, and relevant content for a targeted audience to consume online. So, it can be things like blog posts, videos with blog posts, guest blogging, educational content. So, things like reels, lives, videos, user-generated content as well, photos, demos, creating lists, Q&As, ebooks, and the list can go on and on. But in the whole basicness of content marketing, it's really about storytelling and storytelling of your brand. And it really talks about who you're serving and why you're serving. And that's the whole point of a brand, is your why. And the thing is, content has been around for ages, even before the internet. So things like the newspapers, when you went to plays, that was content marketing in itself. And it's just about sharing with other people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, naturally, as humans, we want to interact and engage with new ideas, new thoughts. We want to learn. We're constantly curious and so on. So that's why I think it's kind of cool that there's this opportunity now that we can go online and talk about content.
Anything we want.
Literally anything we want.
And we're consuming it all the time.
Oh.
And so are our ideal clients then,
exactly.
Right? So
you think about the averages of how long people are on their devices for and stuff.
I try not to think about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's why I'm I don't want to screw with that. No.
Yeah. But it's the perfect thing to do. But I'm not gonna lie, as you started listing off blog posts, videos, all the different things that it could be,
Yeah.
Feels a little overwhelming as a solopreneur or, even someone with a small team of, okay, so how do I do all the things?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like a very loaded question.
I was going to say, I'm like, I don't really know where to start that, Juliet.
Like, whoa, back off, girl.
Just going to take a drink.
Yes. So that's how we do things. Get the creativity going.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I know that's where you thrive. That's like your sweet spot. So I feel like I'm just going to ask you a whole lot of questions on this episode. And you're going to tell us all the things.
I'm excited.
So what where do we start? Like if I'm thinking like, okay, this is something that I really need to amp up or ramp up in my business, I'm lost.
Yeah.
Where do I go?
Always start back with your client or customer. So what do you think that they want to see? You know, there's like, yeah, it's so broad because like there's so many ways you can take it. But so the easiest thing is to start out with your customer and then think, how do they consume content and how do they want to consume content? So for example, if I'm a busy CEO, I probably don't want to sit down and read a whole entire blog, but I don't mind listening on the go while I drive to work, you know? So a podcast would be a great way for me to consume content. And that's another thing too, before you even start, you need to figure out where you're also putting your content. Because the thing is, things like blogging is a lot of work. It's great because you have like the SEO component for your website. And it positions you as the expert, but it's a lot of work and people sometimes don't realize how much work it is. Whereas, and like even podcasting, a lot of people think it's as easy as just hitting record, but there's so many moving parts and like, are you going to do the video component? Like, so I think I would start with like being realistic of what you can handle capacity wise and also what you like to do. Because like if you don't like doing podcasting and you're like super introverted and you don't really want to talk too much, you probably like that's probably not the route you want to go. Maybe blogging is the way that you should go. But then when it comes down to the nitty gritty of like finding exactly what to talk about, there's so many different ways you can go about it. So yes, again, go to your client. What do they want? What do they want to visually see? What questions are they asking themselves right now? And is there a story that you're not telling them? Another great way is also looking at your competitors. What are your competitors currently doing? Is every single competitor doing like blogging right now or doing just YouTube content? Maybe then you do the podcast because it differentiates yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe they're missing people that do want to be on the podcast or listen to podcasts, for example. So yeah, it's such a broad like where to start. I think it differs so much person to person and business to business. Because there's another thing too where like I could be a plumbing company. Not many people are going to want to read about plumbing, you know, but they're going to eventually need a plumber.
Yes.
So what does that content look like? You know? So then perhaps like, yeah, you talk a little bit about plumbing, but then also talk about like the before and afters, like the fun content that people really want to engage with. And that's where you have to kind of be a little bit strategic. Because like for people, like we're lucky that we can share our expertise as the value proponent to our business.
Yeah.
But yeah, like things like plumbing, I just always go back to that because I'm definitely not following any plumbing. But like if I'm looking at a plumber, I'm gonna see what they have out there for content.
Yeah, it's more when the specific need comes up, you're gonna go look for it.
Exactly.
So making sure that you can be found also.
Exactly.
Right. So like when you were saying with the blogs and the SEO, that might help. So if someone's Googling plumbers in PEI or Charlottetown or whatever, will that pop up? Will you seem like a knowledgeable source, someone who knows what they're doing, all that kind of stuff?
Exactly. And like you could have content pillars of like just reviews, you know, like especially if you are that service-based business where you're getting like quite a bit of feedback and stuff. And that most of those kinds of businesses are. You can repurpose like your Google My Business review into a post, you know, obviously make it branded and stuff. Right. And that would be a content, you know. And I think that's the thing too. People sometimes overthink content, that it has to be this like, oh, really thought out. It has to be like a 10 list with a bunch of pictures. And a lot of people think content is just a blog post, which like for some people that's what they call content. But it can just be images and like thinking about what you're putting out there that represents your brand, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Still a lot of things.
I was gonna say, and that's the
But,
tricky part. I wish I
yeah.
could give like exactly what to do, but it's so different business to business.
Yes,
you
that's
know?
fair. Yeah, and that's why you say go back to your client or your customer, right? So where are they spending their time? What's makes it easy for them to consume? Because if it's going to be challenging for them to go and listen, watch, read, they're not going to do it. Then you might be like, well, I'm putting all this time into my content marketing, yet it's not turning into sales. What's going on? And it's like, because you didn't go back to your original customer profile and know where they're at.
And like, are you solving their problem when you put all this out?
Or are
You
you
know?
just doing what's easy for you?
Exactly.
Right? Because you did say, if you don't like writing, maybe blogging isn't the thing, or if you're not, if you're very introverted, maybe being on a podcast or even like videos might not be the thing either. But if that's what your client wants, you might have to jump outside of your comfort zone and find ways to do that too.
Exactly. But then you can also do it like in smaller aspects. Like, so perhaps not going onto YouTube and doing like an hour-long video, but going on to Instagram Reels and just doing a quick little reel. It's only 30 seconds, so that's kind of nice. Then you don't have to be like super in your face for an hour.
Yeah.
If that's where you think your clients are. But like the thing is, you can have some clients that also prefer consuming content other ways. I think it's just more so like, what do you think like your clients are mostly interacting with? Because like that's the thing, everyone wants to be everywhere. We talked a little bit about this on the funnel. Like, you kind of have to figure out where it is that people are actually and what would get them to the next point, right? And I see it so often where people, they want to do all the things when they start their business. Like, and it's true. Like, I even did the same thing. Like, you have all this time because you don't have clients yet. So you're like, I'm going to do a blog. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then all of a sudden you start working in your business, and then and then it's like, oh shoot, I have to work on my business. And like,
when am I supposed to do this?
Exactly. You have to keep kind of going at it. And I do kind of notice, and I think it's, and I'm not trying to call anyone out at all on this, but people start off like with a plan and a marketing plan and everything. But then as soon as they start getting out there, it's like content-wise.
Well, there's certain people that I follow online that I can tell when they are
busy.
busy, or when it's like, oh, they probably dropped some clients right now because all of a sudden they're like in your face social media intensely for like a week or two, and then you don't see anything from them for like 2 or 3 months. Yeah. And then bam, they're in your face again, and you're like, that's interesting. But
I'm so bad at that.
It happens, right? And it's hard to stay consistent, but I guess that's why it's like, find what'll work and what you can keep doing based on how much you think you're going to end up working when you got clients.
Yeah. The thing is too, from like a self-care perspective, like when you say that, I feel attacked. Not that you're attacking me, but like I feel I'm attacking myself because I know that I do that. But because I always say like, I want a work-life balance for myself. So when I'm busy and it's the end of the day, I'm not going to bust my ass. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the interesting thing with like, even when I used to do really big blog posts with YouTube videos, I love doing them, but they're, like I said before, they're a lot of work. It would take me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to record. Then I'd have to edit, which takes me another an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then I have to put it on and write an article about it, which takes me another hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I have to put it on the website, which takes about another like 30 minutes or so. Find the images. It's a full day of work to do one blog post, and I would still get a lot of people that really enjoyed them, and I would get people like from the like that would see my article months later that say that they love it, which is great. But then it's just like, when you're that busy, I'm not, again, the work-life balance, I'm not going to overexert myself. You know what I mean? Like, again, the hustle culture, I don't want to be working my bum off. Yeah. You know? And that's something that you kind of have to decide. Like, and that's I feel kind of, how do I want to put this? I feel kind of hypocritical in a weird way, because I'm always like, if you're going to choose something, be consistent with it. And it's true, because I know it's bad. But like it's just so hard sometimes because and the thing is if you're listening and you've paused your efforts to like I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it is easier just to kind of do the ebb and flow of
Yeah.
things. It sucks because there's some people that are constantly wanting that content because they aren't ready to make that purchase or, you know, get your services yet.
But they still want to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's tough. And it's, you know, like we don't want people, yourself included, beating yourselves up for
Exactly.
taking a pause and whatnot because I mean, how great is it that maybe you're so busy with clients that you don't have time? That's a good thing. Or, yeah, you've decided that what's important is that you end your work day at a certain time and then you have time, you know, you spend time with your spouse or your partner, family, fur babies, real babies, whoever is important to you, by yourself. Yeah. I love my alone time too.
Oh, yes.
And that's key for your self-care, right?
Yeah.
So there is sometimes going to be something that falls to the wayside.
Yeah.
And the content marketing is probably what that thing is for many of us.
I think that's like the biggest thing that takes a step. Because the thing is, there's no instant gratification. Whereas, like, if you're going to get money for this right now, I'm going to put more efforts into my people that are,
100%.
you know. And it is true, like, it's hard to track the ROI, so your return on investment, on content marketing. Because there's not, like, yes, you can look at your analytics on your blog post or how many people are listening. But at the same time, it's like you don't actually know if like they're not ready to make the purchase yet. Maybe the next couple more posts that you don't know that they're gonna, you know, eventually make that decision to invest in what you're offering.
True.
You know.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like it's a risky thing to go into, and that's why I think so many more people are outsourcing people to kind of handle that for them because it is true. It is really important to be consistent, but it's hard. It's so hard because it's true. Like some people don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
And there's so many, like, there's so much information out there of like, you need to do this and this and this.
It's overwhelming.
Buy this course and it'll give you exactly what you need to do.
And then you're going to get a million emails from signing up for that freebie.
Exactly.
But these people have got their content marketing figured out.
Yeah.
I think for me too, it's when you say like a lot of people will outsource it, I immediately go, that would be cool. But wait a second, I'm my brand. I feel like it would still be a lot of work for me, even if I'm outsourcing it, to get the raw data or, you know, if I'm filming or anything, it still has to be me.
Yeah. And
that feels like a lot of pressure.
Oh, 100%. And also if you're hiring someone too, you want to make sure that they're still representing your brand and like
the right voice and
exactly.
What are the other words for that?
But then that's when like having your like your basically your brand sheet, like where you have not of course your identity, so your colors and stuff, but you also have your messaging, your tone.
Right.
Like what kind of voice you use in public and stuff like that. That I think is really important when bringing in people in that are going to be handling your content. You know, professionals, they're going to ask you what your like what your voice is and stuff like that. Well, they should.
Or they would probably be like, okay, let's build it.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And then they would look at what you've been doing, you know, thus far as well. When you're bringing someone on. And I think, there's kind of especially when you've been working by yourself for a long time and you're a solopreneur, it's hard to take on someone that's going to manage or like work in your brand.
Find that trust and let go of that control.
Right? It's hard. So scary. Oh, man.
Yeah. It's, I feel like every time we have these episodes, I'm like, so I'm gonna go start doing all the things. But I do always want to have like a takeaway that I'm gonna have too. What are your thoughts? Like, I have so many questions for you. I'm trying to figure out the best one to ask you. So once you know what you're gonna focus on, right? So I'm hearing from you that trying to do all of it at once is not the best because it's going to be too overwhelming. So you figure out where your client's at. That's what you're going to start doing. You get the consistent content going. Could you share the same content in multiple places? So like the other day I put up an IGTV. That's the only place that I put it. But then I found myself wondering, well, I could throw this on my YouTube channel. I could also put it on LinkedIn or Facebook, but should I?
Yeah.
I don't know, and where do you stop with that? Or I could still use the same topic, but do 4 different videos? That feels like very time consuming. So I don't know what the best approach would be for something like that.
Yeah. I think, so first things first, I would never schedule something and put it on every single platform at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't do that.
Just don't do that.
Reason number one is, like, most people will be like, well, then why would I follow your Facebook too if you're just posting the exact same content?
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, you also have to think, like, there's different kinds of people on different platforms. So your clientele on Facebook is probably a lot different than your clientele, say, in Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how they consume content is also very different on those platforms as well. So perhaps it is that you have to divide that content. Or maybe you just post it a little bit later, like a month later, because especially if it's evergreen content, so it doesn't really, expire, it's not current events or anything like that, then I do suggest, like, yeah, repurpose it, especially if you are busy. Like, I will sometimes be like, oh, have you guys looked at this SEO blog of mine from 2 months ago? It is okay to reshare content, especially if you have a lot of people that are asking for the content at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think sometimes it is easier to have a strategy for each platform. So, like, for example, when I work with people, I actually have, like, an Instagram strategy and then a Facebook strategy, and then there's a LinkedIn strategy, right? Because, like I said, they're very different, and how people consume things is very different.
True.
So, like, for example, on LinkedIn, I noticed that, like, whenever I would post about my blog posts, I get quite a bit of feedback from them. Whereas, like, I've been posting our Thriving Tides, and they've been doing quite well, and video does do really well. But, like, at the same time, those consumers are usually the ones that are okay reading a blog post still. Like,
yeah.
So, and that's something you have to kind of ask yourself too, is how are people consuming this content and why?
Right.
So, like, Facebook, you could do a longer IGT format, but then, like, if you were to do, like, a quick video, it may not perform as well. It kind of, again, it depends client to client, customer to customer.
Yeah. Because I see some people, like, saving their reels from IGTV or their TikToks and throwing those on Facebook and different things like that too, right? And I'm like, But sometimes I think, okay, that probably works with their brand. Yeah. Wouldn't necessarily work with mine.
Not necessarily. And, like, if the content is relevant too, right? Like, I follow a couple people that that do cooking, and they would post a TikTok about it, and, like, but that's relevant to, like, Facebook too. But, like, for example, I mostly post on Instagram because that's where most of my clients are. I'll put, like, updates for my company, or, like, whenever I this is just, like, what I personally do, but, like, if I worked with a client, I'll post it on Facebook because that's where most of my clients like to hang out too.
Right.
And it's different kind of content. And it makes it a little bit easier too to digest, to know exactly what I kind of need to do as well, if that kind of makes sense. But yeah.
So many things. I like what you're saying with, like, the evergreen stuff.
Yes.
Because so you have a strategy, you're putting things together, but sometimes current events do pop up unexpectedly. Something will happen, there'll be a movement or whatever. Can you post something outside of your strategy? How do you fit that in? Or maybe it's you're wanting to give a shout out to someone or applause them for something great that they've done and you didn't know that was coming. Do you replace something that was in your strategy? Do you just add to it? Like, do you have to worry about throwing things off by going outside the box every now and then?
No.
It's like, it's either going to be a no or it depends.
It depends. Well, it does actually depend. I meant, like, no in the sense that you have to, like, censor anything. Like, so the best way that you have to kind of take it with what's going on. Like, so for example, when Black Lives Matter movement happened, I was actually gearing up to do a whole entire blog post. But at the time, I'm like, that's not the discussion that needs to be had. I don't need to talk about this. I need to go silent and do my research and, go inwards. And really figure out what's going on and, be a listener. Right? It would have looked really insensitive for me to post about my brand and how exciting everything is with my brand.
Mm-hmm.
right? So then that, yes, I was like, oh, I need to like not post this. But like
Right.
if like something happened where you are congratulating someone, just add it along to your strategy. You know what I mean? I feel like if you have something already planned, just put it out there.
Mm.
I think we sometimes overthink it, like, oh, I already have something like pre-planned for this. And I know I can be a little bit crazy about that with our Instagram. I'll be like, we have this plan, Juliette.
Follow the plan.
But like at the same time, like life happens. Things are like 2020 is key to that. Like everything is going to change and there's going to be ebb and flow, and then conversations are also going to change. Some things are not going to be as important. And like, so like if you're in the restaurant industry, like you probably had to constantly change up your content all the time to like, oh, we're closed, and
Circuit
oh, we're not
breaker,
closed.
Lockdown.
Like, you know what I mean?
Only. Yeah.
And that's tricky to have a strategy, but if you at least like try to think about how do I want to say this? You want to think about how mindful you are into what's actually going on around you and in your world. You know, don't be insensitive. If another thing too is also look at your competitors. Are they currently talking about it right now? Is there overlap? I think that's a big thing that sometimes is missed, and I think it's kind of funny because I'll see people unintentionally putting the same stuff out, and then it's mismessaging for the consumer, which is just so.
They're like, who do I believe?
Exactly.
Or who do I follow? Like, you're both saying the same thing. Why would I follow you both?
Exactly. So I think that's another like interesting thing too, is just kind of be aware of what's going on around you.
Yeah.
But
fair. I feel like I'm just firing questions at you.
That's okay.
Okay, so here's another question for you. Content calendars.
Yes.
Plans. Yes. You're all about it.
Love them.
How far out should I be planned?
If you can.
Don't say it depends.
It depends, Julianne.
Ideally
a month.
Okay.
So, and that's the thing too. Like everything changes so much within months. Like don't have like a plan for 6 months in advance. And the thing is, some things can change. If you do, that's amazing. If you are planning 6 months in ahead, like good on you. Like that's amazing.
I can imagine.
But I'm sure like if you are planning 6 months ahead, you also have a lot of flexibility available. But I usually tell people like start the month with a general calendar of what you want to do. I always say also like have about how many times you want to post a week as well, and try to keep it as consistent as possible. But yeah, I usually suggest around a month. And the thing is too, like I know I talk about it all the time, but like batch contenting, right? Just have one day where you dedicate it to just social media for the whole entire day. Set it, kind of sort of forget it, obviously come back to it when you post it. It just makes it so much easier. And then because that's the thing too, like I think the biggest thing that I get is like, what do I post? And I feel like I'm always constantly scrambling to post something at the moment, and I'm like,
yeah,
you should never feel that way.
Like I always feel that way.
No, I meant like the pressure to post.
Yes. Yeah. It's all self-imposed too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love the idea of a day to work on it, but I struggle to make that work with my schedule.
Well, it's hard because, again, going back to ROI, like, I could do something that'll make me money right now, but do I really want to work on social media where it's like, you know?
Who even knows if there's a return?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that I also get is that, like, why do I have to do social media? You know, it sucks. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Not just social media, even content in general. Why can't I just show my product and people buy it? I wish.
Some people probably can.
Yeah.
Most of us cannot.
Exactly.
So can you tell us a little bit about what a strategy would look like?
Well, it depends.
Sorry. It's a good thing you're all the way over there.
Oh, I had a couple sips and I'm already like,
yeah, she's getting feisty. What's in this colliding tides anyway? Just a hint of feistiness.
Yeah, a little hint of feistiness. So what I usually like to start out with, especially when we're talking about the contents side of strategy, because there's a lot of other factors that go into strategy that we're we're not going to talk about today. But more so the content side. I always like to do what I call content pillars.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually did that in a workshop, and I think a lot of people were like, oh, that's very interesting.
So helpful.
Yeah, and I think it makes it easier too for people to really visually see what it is that they're offering. Because, like I said, it's really hard to be like, what am I posting about? What do I need to post about? Or what have I not talked about in a long time? Oh, I need to look at my social media. So content pillars are kind of what they sound like. You're thinking about your audience and you're thinking about their pain point. What is it that they really, really want to learn about or see, right? So it can really help take the guessing game out of that marketing and content marketing aspect. You really have to think of like, again, what do they want to see? So I could have a content pillar based on value. So teaching people what I do to position myself as expertise. I can also have a content pillar where I bring my personal brand. So I talk about my pets. I talk about things that are going on. I talk about how I hate taxes as a business owner. You know what I mean?
Go check out her reel. It's cute.
But like, and people connected with that, which is really cool. So it's like, it's not being the stuffy, like, and that's the thing too. People want to connect with people at the end of the day. And content pillars is just an easy way to divide what that content is. So I usually have like about 5 pillars. You can kind of decide how many pillars that would be. So I have like value, education, a promo pillar. So actually my call to actions, the personal. And it can be whatever you are currently doing as a content strategy currently. And you can also add on to it. So you really want to think of like, of course, your brand messaging, your brand voice, what it is you want to talk about, what can you talk about, and then divide them into pillars. So, for example, if I want to then plan out my calendar, lost the word calendar for a reason. If I want to plan out my content calendar for the month, I could say, okay, I want to do this pillar twice this month. And then I want to do this pillar at least 3 times because I feel like I haven't talked about myself in a long time. I don't know why. It feels awkward. But then I also want to have a pillar that I'm talking about testimonials and my clients, you know? And each pillar has a purpose, you know? And the cool thing about pillars too is that you can also have a hashtag strategy attached to it for like the Instagram route, which is really cool because you can like put, so for example, on my personal, I have like specific hashtags. So I can have at least a hashtag set that I always fall back on and then add on to it. So it takes the get, because that's another thing too. People are always like,
oh man, to sit there and write 30 hashtags per.
And like what's relevant to this? Whereas like on the value, I always put the same like 15, but then I add on based on what that post is currently saying as well. It's hard to really describe pillars without being visual. Like I usually have like a little diagram with it and like this is.
Well, maybe on the YouTube you could throw in that diagram you used in your workshop.
Yes, I definitely
really
will.
Helpful. Yeah.
And I want to make a worksheet soon about like building content pillars too.
You want to make a worksheet?
Yeah, I know. It's strange, hey? What is a worksheet? I don't do that. But yeah, I think
that's
like,
really helpful.
It does, yeah.
Because I find otherwise you just, if you're falling under one pillar without really realizing it, you can get boring. Probably because you're also probably getting bored of writing the same type of content all the time. And then it starts to fall flat maybe with the people that are consuming it also.
Exactly.
But if you're changing it up and have all these different angles to take.
Or you're giving too much of one and not enough of the other. Like, so for example, I see this all the time and it's great for people that are consuming the content, but like they'll give a lot of value but then where's the call to action contents?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like what's the actual other aspect of it? So like when I usually talk about content pillars, it is sometimes social media based, but you can also divide that into your like other contents, like blog content as well. What do you talk about? You know, so you can have so for example, if you're a multi-service based business, so like me, I'll have a content pillar where it's just website stuff. And then I'll have a content pillar that's just graphic design stuff. And then I'll have another content pillar that's marketing stuff. Right? And so then that makes it easier for the end person to kind of figure out what I'm talking about. in a way too.
Yeah.
And why I'm talking about it.
Why are you telling me this?
Exactly.
That's fair. Yeah. And I mean, if it's a true strategy, then you have all this in the background, right? And it's not just waking up one day and be like, I better post something today.
Exactly.
What's it going to be? And then you probably waste just as much time dreading it, worrying about it, wondering what to do,
Or
as
not
if
even
you could
doing
just
it.
batch your time
Yeah.
and just get it done.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
need to listen to that advice more often.
Yeah.
I do have a somewhat of a strategy scribbled and taped to my wall right now. I'm not following it perfectly, but that's a step in the right direction.
Hey, that's all right. And that's
Yeah.
a cool thing too when you have like the content pillars, where going back to like the evergreen content and stuff like that. You can see what you've already talked about. What are you missing talking about? Is there a pain point that you're not talking about, or other people aren't talking about, that you can go back on? Because like maybe you are talking too much about education. You know, like maybe I'm talking too much about content pillars one day, you know, and then I'm going to be like, oh, shoot, I need to, you know, go back to talking about website stuff.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because like sometimes we do get into like a little bit of a pigeonhole of what we're talking about, or we're excited about one thing right now, so we're only talking about it.
And you're not a one-trick pony, right? There's all these different things you can do as well. And if you're not talking about it, how do people know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting what you say about, you know, like your competitors and stuff like that too. So I find myself often like screenshotting posts from my competitors as inspiration or ideas and things like that. But then sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to seem like I'm copying them. Yeah. Or I get really awkward and then I don't end up doing anything with it because I'm just like, well, I don't know. I don't want to be like stealing it, but it caught my eye. So I'm like, how do I use that as inspiration to write something that's going to catch my client's eye?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's super impactful and necessary to take inspiration. Obviously, don't copy. I've gotten that a couple times where people are like, oh, can you create this ad that's exactly like this, but just with my colors? And I'm like, no.
That's just mean.
Luckily, it's like for like, it's like big brands that are out there and stuff like that.
Right.
And they're just taking the inspiration of it. But there's a reason why it's working, right? And especially if you notice that there's lots of engagement. It's taking it and thinking, how can I make it even more valuable? How can I make this more to my brand? What can I edit from it that will make it even better? You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's true. Like some people are going to get upset if you take inspiration. But the thing is, I hate this quote, but I love this quote at the same time. But there's not an original idea out there. You know what I mean? Like, guaranteed there's someone else who did that reel that I did the other day in a different style. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Because like, well, especially with the world of TikTok where everyone's using the same song all the time, it's impossible.
Man, you get sick of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I think if you're at least being authentic about it, and you're not coming from a place of like, ha ha ha, I'm going to backstab you and take all your content and all of it I'm going to copy. You know, like if it's like a couple posts here and there that you're taking inspiration from, I don't see the harm in it. Yeah. It's when like I have seen like some people do the strategy of literally doing exactly what their competitor is doing because it's a way to kind of, you know, one up them, which is, again, that's not good. Karma-wise, energy-wise, just don't do that.
Yeah, it's not what you want to do.
Be authentic, especially to yourself. And yeah, long story short, just it's okay.
Yeah, like use it to inspire and come up with your own ideas. Like I was thinking too, like imitation is a form of flattery too, right? So, you must be doing something right if your competitors are trying to do it too.
Right.
So instead of taking that as like, oh, how dare they? It'd be like, yeah, I'm leading the way.
Exactly.
And that's really cool too. And if we continue to have the mindset of community and collaboration over competition and truly believe that there is enough for everyone, then we don't get all weird about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, content. So many things.
I was gonna say, like, that when I was doing the notes for this episode, I was just kind of like, oh goodness, I could take this in like so many different directions, and I would love to one day have like a whole entire community conversation about content. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Maybe one day after all these COVID times, we'll have a get together about content. I think that'd be super, super fun. But
Thriving Tides retreat, perhaps.
Ooh.
I'm just
put that out in the universe.
Just put it out there.
Oh man, but yeah, I think the thing is with like having a good content strategy is to really think of like a clear direction and a clear purpose. So again, don't post just for the sake of it. You also want to make sure that it's actually high quality and value. So often I do see, and that's another reason why sometimes I take breaks, because I'm like, I could post something right now, but it's not going to be of value because I'm just going to be going really quick and just putting it out there because I know I need to put it out there. Especially high quality. Especially like we're service-based business. If we're going to put something out there, we need to, if it's not high quality, it looks bad on us because then it looks like we're not experts.
Yeah.
Did we do our research? Not really.
No, just whip this together.
Exactly. If you can whip it together and it still sounds really good, that's amazing. But like I know me, I need to edit, and I'm not a writer by any means, so another thing too is, again, you do need to have the long-term goal of being consistent with it. Like, so you have to build those strong relationships, just like back to the social media. You need to build those relationships. And also it needs to be relevant. What's going on in the world right now? What are the questions that people are having? So for example, when COVID hit, a lot of people were taking their businesses online. So I noticed an influx of people in my community posting about how to take your business online and tips for taking your business online. Or you saw people that were in the ergonomics and like how to build your office appropriately at home, like how to adapt in this new time. And you don't want to be late to the game too. So I think staying up on trends of like what's going on is also another really great way to, if you're ever feeling lost and like, what do I post? Look at what's going on in the world. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
What's trending?
What's trendy?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think we can get stuck in our fear a lot too. So, while yes, you want to have really high value and great content, you can go so far to the extreme that you just want everything to be so perfect that you don't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance. I often too, I'm like, I don't know, I think my ideal client needs to hear this, but do they? Or is it going to land right? Am I going to look stupid? I mean, we're not going to get any better without doing it at all, too, right? So sometimes you do have to test the waters and put things out there. And then, as Steph always says, look at the analytics.
Of course. Analytics are huge.
So what's getting the engagement? And if nothing is, then change it up. But if some things are really getting it and others aren't, then what can you learn from the ones that are? And just, it's like getting into that beginner's mind and not feeling like, yeah, you might be the expert in your subject matter, but you may not be an expert in content marketing.
Exactly.
And that's okay. This is what you have to learn now, or go hire someone.
Yeah. And sometimes it's really funny because you can do as much like researching into your client and figure out this is exactly what they need to post. It did well on someone else's post, so I want to do something like it. And then you put it out there, it doesn't get as much engagement. And then you put something else that you think is not going to do good. Like having that thought that you just had of like, oh, people really want to hear this. You put it out and everyone loves it. I get that all the time. And like, it's funny because you just never know. It could just be the way that you talk about it in a different way that makes it more impactful for the person on the other end.
Right.
Which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, I think sometimes you just have to kind of get out there. And another thing too that I've just thought about too is what kind of questions do you usually get? You know what I mean? What like, people that are looking for either free consultations or people that what questions do they have, right?
And then base your content on that.
Exactly. So like I said, my biggest question is always like how to make my website faster. How do I do SEO? Like it's the basic education. And so I like to teach that, and that's another reason why I'm kind of excited that we have Thriving Tides, because it's another avenue that I can talk about things that I'm passionate about and that I love to talk about.
Yeah.
and vice versa, probably for you as well. And I think that's another thing too, is just listen to what your audience is already telling you without telling you.
Mm.
Even if it's like your family members. Like sometimes I'll just get my husband, who's starting to possibly go into business for himself right now. He's asking me a bunch of questions that I think is very like basic, that I don't think anyone's going to want to learn.
Mm.
But they actually are. Like, that's a question that's totally relevant.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, when you're doing whatever business you're in, you've been doing it for so long, it's easy to think, oh, everybody knows that.
Exactly.
I want to teach this really high level stuff, but really you might need to get back down into the weeds with the masses of the beginner stuff. And that could be where you're really going to make all your money.
Well, and it's funny because we had this conversation the other day, but like, what is a coach? What's a coach versus a consultant? Maybe that's a blog post, you know? What should you expect? Because, like, that's the thing. Like, we were having that conversation the other day.
Because some people are like, I want to be a coach so I can tell people how to do this, 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 and this. And I'm like,
that's a consultant.
That's not a coach. But some people would be like, whoa, Julianne, calm down. Like, it's not a big deal. But I've invested a lot of time and money into be like on my way to become an accredited coach. And that's important to me. Just like, you know, lawyers and accountants and other people who go and get their designations. So people just slap a title on and do it. And now I'm going off into tangents.
No, but like, see, but that's good. Like, it seems super basic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like, so for example, even with branding, a lot of people don't understand what branding is. A lot of people think branding is your logo. And my constant messaging is that it's more than that.
Yes.
You know? And so I actually have some, like, content that is talking about branding in the simplest of forms. For some people, they already know what it is. And it's kind of like, oh, that kind of size. And sometimes your content's going to miss. You know? But then there's that one person that was like, oh, that's what it is. That's why I need it. That's why I need to research into it. You know, and like same with like that, like that's a very basic bones, like coaching versus consultant. You know, and the thing is, people like me, I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense, and I always just kind of like did it intertwine, like until I started talking with you more. I would say coach and consultant.
Yeah, and they do kind of overlap. Depending on who they are and what their background is, they might jump between the two. Yeah, and when I'm coaching a client and I'm slipping into that, I actually will say, is it okay if I take my coach hat off for a moment and slip into like a consultant mode? And I clearly indicate when that is happening so that I can differentiate the two so that they are clear on what that is too.
That's cool. I like that.
Because I don't want them to think that's what a coach is, right? Yeah. But if I have actual experience in what they're maybe looking for, then sometimes I will give a little bit of advice. Yeah. But that's not what coaching's all about. Not sensitive.
Oh man, I love this.
It's so fun. So many things.
Yeah, like that's why it's kind of funny that I figured that this conversation we'd go into like a whole bunch of different tangents because like I keep saying, it depends, and content is such a massive topic, but I knew that we needed to talk a little bit about it. But yeah,
there's lots of places to go. I wrote in my notes too about patience because I think we just want to start doing it and then think, okay, I'm going to start making money right away. And I remember when I first launched my business, like I was posting on social 7 days a week.
Holy shit.
Not all valuable. Couldn't have been.
You were on Instagram stories like a lot for a bit there too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just was like, thought that that's what I needed to do. Right. And now I post just a couple times a week, but I feel my following is growing faster now because I'm giving better quality, because I'm doing less but better instead of spreading myself thin over too many posts. So I've definitely noticed that, but it's still a lot of patience. And you don't really know, just because you're growing a following doesn't mean that that's going to result in more sales either, right?
Exactly.
And there's a lot of weird accounts that follow you sometimes and stuff like that too, that you're just like, oh, that doesn't even really count.
Well, I always tell people the number of people following you is worth shit.
Yeah.
If none of them are converting, who effing cares?
Yeah.
Pardon my French, but like, I hate when people are like, I'm not getting enough likes and I'm not getting enough this, but then like, I also ask them, are you getting clients? Oh yeah, I get quite a bit clients. And I'm like, then you're still providing value.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some people. The thing is too, you just never know. Some people will buy followers, some people buy likes. It kind of doesn't really mean anything unless you're actually converting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing too when it comes to social media that kind of breaks my heart is I'll work with people and they think because like, oh, I hired an expert or whatnot that I should be getting like a huge return on my investment and that I should have a bunch of followers. And the thing is, every strategy should be a long-term gain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if people are saying that they can get you X amount of followers, like it's just everything should be a long-term strategy. Again, about a brand is building relationships. If
it doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't happen overnight. Like think about dating. You wouldn't just be like on your first date, okay, are we boyfriend girlfriend now?
Let's get married.
Like that's gonna creep people out. It's gonna be like, ugh, too much.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the biggest thing that people or entrepreneurs, as we need to kind of constantly remind ourselves is, are we building a sustainable relationship that'll be good for the long term? And I talked about this on the workshop too, that like, yeah, there's going to be some people that aren't going to necessarily take the next step and purchase your product or purchase your service, but they may actually know someone that does actually want that product or service. And wouldn't it be great if they said, hey, you should go to this person?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and I get that all the time, especially when it comes to content marketing and offering value. A lot of people are like, I don't want to give so much stuff for free because, you know, like...
Then no one will pay me.
No one will pay me for it. And then we talked a little about this on the funnels and stuff like that. But we have to, you know? Someone else will do it.
Yeah.
And it's so impactful to be there for your community. And yeah, if you're not getting a crazy amount of followers, obviously look at that and see what you can change in your strategy. But if you're still getting like a lot of feedback and people are talking with you and stuff like that, that's huge.
Yeah.
And especially if people are like, oh, this what you shared is super helpful, that feels good too.
It does.
Right?
Yeah, it's not, you know, more followers doesn't equal more sales, doesn't equal you are worthy.
Oh my goodness, yes.
It's knowing that you're putting out what you want to put out and just learn from what's happening. I think that's key. But lots of patience and just stay consistent. Even if you're not seeing the results right away, either they will come or there's a shift that needs to happen in your strategy. And I guess that's why, like, going back to thinking like a month at a time is good, because then you can take a look and see what's working, what's not, and be able to shift. Whereas if you spent like, I don't even know how anyone could do 6 months at a time. But if you planned out 6 months and then realized like, wait, I'm not even doing the right stuff, that's a waste.
Yeah.
So maybe if you were really established and knew exactly what you needed to do, you could plan out a little bit further. But
exactly.
Month at a time feels like it's a good amount
start.
You can get your arms around and not feel super overwhelmed. And it gives you the ability to switch it up.
Exactly.
My key is remembering to plan the next month before this month is over, though.
Yeah.
Like have a little overlap.
Yeah, a little overlap is always good. I'm putting this out there because I kind of want to do it. It might maybe May, I'm thinking. I want to do a content challenge of posting every single day. Because the thing is, like, posting every day is actually really good because for the most part, it's for the algorithm is really good to post every day.
Yeah.
But like, the thing is, it's not sustainable to post every day. It's hard. And like, it's true. Like, the overwhelm of what to post next, and like, do people really care about my coffee? Probably not. You know, unless I can make it like a fun post or something like that. So I kind of want to do a content challenge, and I'll probably make a calendar for it too. So stay tuned, Summer Street Creative, for that, because I think that'll be a lot of fun too, and we can all do it. I'm gonna challenge you to do it too. Just gonna...
No.
No.
Shut down. Shut down. I love you, but
oh man, not for Thriving Tides. I don't think I could. I don't know.
No, I maybe would take like half your challenge, but I know what my next few months are going to look like, and
I was gonna say,
I don't need to add anything to it. I am content.
Yeah.
With my content.
But that's important that you know, and that's another thing too. Like, look at your ebb and flow of your business.
Yeah. But man, there's times where I see someone who's doing a challenge like that, or this webinar that's going to give me all these solutions. And I'm like, oh, I need to do that. And I like push myself into going and watching this 1 hour video or something like that. And then I don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So I just wasted my time. And it's just like this FOMO or something that I get where sometimes I need to trust myself and know that I know what I need to do. And I probably should have just spent that hour doing it instead of watching another video about doing it. But I think what I really need to do, or maybe what we all need to do, is just trust ourselves, right? So take that time, plan out the month or the 2 weeks or whatever fits your business, and stick with it.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe look at Steph's pillars, get some inspiration there of what makes sense for you, and just start trying some stuff out.
Yeah.
Let go of needing to do everything. Focus in a couple of areas that are really going to help your business and try.
Exactly. And worst case, outsource. Outsourcing is always good. You have people like me. I know a lot of people that also do, like, even if it's just social media management, so you can still work on the other aspects of it. But remember, what is the story that you're trying to tell?
Yeah. Storytelling.
Storytelling is, if you can leave with one thing, is what is the story that you're telling currently? And
what are the questions that you get all the time, and how do you answer them in a story?
Exactly.
Okay. Those are our key takeaways.
Key takeaways.
As I make the loser sign at
you. For those listening, Julianne just did 1 and 2, but with
my thumb
L.
and pointer. Yeah. I'm like, oh, wait a second.
Jeez, I feel attacked with this episode.
I love you. Thank you for teaching us about content.
Yeah, this is super exciting. Like I said, I wish we could.
I think this will be the first of many conversations about this. So, let's see what questions come from our community after they this is probably going to bubble. I've asked you a million questions today. I'm sure there's a million more out there. And then based on those, we can have more specific conversations about different types of content in the future. So bring it on.
Bring it on, guys. I'm ready.
Awesome. And thank you once again.
Yes.
For the delicious colliding tides.
Colliding tides. For making us feel feisty and awesome.
Oh, grape is my favorite thing in many contexts. So I'm pretty excited about this. And I think this might be my new beverage of choice.
And I like how it's like subtle too. Like it's not
overpowering.
It's not the like grapefruit juice.
Right.
Or, like,
yeah. It's just the right amount. Yeah.
Yeah, and plus I just love the packaging. Like me and my pastels and like the purple. I'm just like.
I'm just in awe of how my nails look next to this can.
But with that being said,
I'm so vain.
Thank you guys so much.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Thriving Tides. Hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.
Follow us, Thriving Tides, on Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube to stay connected. And remember, don't fight the rip currents.